Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Xbox 360 emulation with Xenia Canary Netplay. Now, Xenia Canary Netplay is a fork of Xenia Canary, which is a fork of Xenia. So it's a fork of a fork. Xenia is an Xbox 360 emulator. Xenia Canary is the more experimental version of Xenia. And Xenia Canary Netplay is the Netplay version of Xenia Canary. Now, I was going to talk about this one yesterday, but it was pulled down and then re-released. It seems there was some sort of technical issue with it that has since been resolved. But anyways, at the time of filming here, version 4.0.0 of Xenia Canary Netplay is now available. And online multiplayer now works with over 400 games. Now, in my opinion, version 4.0 is a pretty big new update. I mean, they've got a whole bunch of fixes, a whole bunch of improvements, and a whole bunch of nice new features. There's now support for online XUIDs for Xbox Live profiles, basic update feature, network mode selector, basic friend support. You can now join friends' present sessions, and basic friends list manager. But moving on and going back one generation and talking about original Xbox emulation with Xemu or Xemu or subscribe to Mr. Sujano, depending on how you wanted to pronounce that. Anyways, Xemu just got a brand new update that you may be very excited about. Now, at the time of filming, version 0.8.3 is the latest update, but Xemu gets updated quite a bit, and by the time you're watching this video, they may already be on a later update. So as for the big update here, Xemu has added in the Vulkan renderer. Now, it is worth pointing out that this is not perfect just yet. They say it's stable enough, and they'll start tracking remaining and new issues separately. And taking a look here, I'll drop a link to this in the description below. In fact, everything I talk about, link will be in the description below right at the bottom. You can see some of the issues here if you are interested. So if you play any of these games, you may encounter a few glitches or issues when using Vulkan. Additionally here, using Vulkan, they say the performance may be better or may be worse. And it's not available on macOS yet, just Windows and Linux. In my opinion, this is a very exciting addition to Xemu, and I'm very curious to see how the development of Vulkan continues. Next up, we're talking about gaming awards. Now, in previous videos, we have talked about the Game Awards and also the Indie Game Awards. And now we're talking about the 2024 Steam Awards. And no surprise here, without spoiling everything, Game of the Year is Black Myth: Wukong. On top of that, there's a category here I'm a big fan of, and that's Best Game on the Steam Deck Award, and the winner for this one is God of War Ragnarok. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not surprised at all that Black Myth: Wukong won Game of the Year. I mean, on Steam right now, it's got an overwhelmingly positive review score with over 800,000 reviews. This game is extremely popular considering it was just released in August. Overall, I'm a big fan of the 2024 Steam Awards, and the only thing I'm kind of disappointed about is not seeing Dragon Ball Sparking Zero in any of these lists. I mean, I purchased that game a few weeks ago, and well, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a fantastic game, and I think it was kind of deserving to be on these lists. But at the same time here, the competition is pretty tough. And speaking about Black Myth: Wukong, next up we're still talking about Black Myth: Wukong. And there were a whole bunch of rumors about this game as to why it wasn't heading over to Xbox, and it turns out that it was not some sort of exclusivity deal. It was because of the Xbox Series S. It's worth pointing out this has been translated, so it may not be 100% accurate, but they say here the only thing missing is the Xbox robe, which somehow feels a bit wrong, but that 10 gigabyte of shared memory without years of optimization experience, it's really hard to make it work. Now, based on that phrasing, some people have said online it's the lack of experience within the Black Myth: Wukong development team that has led to the decision not to be on Xbox. But I mean, if you take a look at the specs, there's a big difference between 10 gigs of RAM for a system and 16 gigs and what's usable for games. And I would say in this day and age, 10 gigs of RAM is not really a whole lot, especially to be running a AAA game. Now, I don't know about you, but on a system with 2/3 less the RAM and lesser GPU power, I can see how the development team would be struggling to get this game running in a state they're happy with on that system. I mean, if you take a look at other games and then how they run on the Nintendo Switch, Mortal Kombat being a great example of that. The Switch only has 4 gigs of RAM, well, 3 usable ones. And the game on the Switch compared to the PC version is, to me, entirely different. The Switch game does not look pretty. It doesn't seem to run near as well. And the Black Myth Wukong team may not be happy with that kind of degraded performance and visuals. But I'll close that can of worms before we open it and go down a rabbit hole here. Just let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts about having to optimize a game for a system that has lesser requirements, and whether or not you think this is a challenge for the development team, or whether or not you think this is a limitation of the system. And speaking about systems and limitations, next up we're talking about Terminal. And someone has just wrote an emulator, a Game Boy emulator, to work in Terminal. I am not joking with you here, and this appears to be live footage of it. It's absolutely incredible what people can accomplish. So this emulator is written in Rust. It is available on GitHub, and if you are curious about this one, it appears the developer is continuing to work on it and improve it. And speaking about optimizations, next up we're talking about the dark side of gaming and two articles you may find very interesting. So the first one here is called Top 10 Most Optimized PC Games of 2024. And the other one are Here Are the Worst Optimized PC Games of 2024. And again, like everything I talk about, link is in the description below at the bottom. So in the Most Optimized Games list, they've got stuff in here like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. They've got Tekken 8, they've got Dragon Age the Veilguard, they've got Indiana Jones, and even more. And in the Worst Optimized PC Games, they've possibly got a few surprises in here. They've got Until Dawn Remake, Stalker 2, Dragon's Dogma 2, and even more. And I do recommend checking out these articles and their explanations as to why these games were poorly optimized. Next up, we're talking about game preservation, and there seems to have been a pretty big win for Nintendo 3DS game preservation, as 7 E3 2010 demos have been dumped and preserved. There's a brand new video here called Newly Found Nintendo 3DS E3 2010 Demo Showcase, and I do recommend checking it out. The video here goes through a whole bunch of stuff. It's not just the demos, but they also showcase a whole bunch of very interesting information. And in the description of that video, they do have where these games have been preserved. Everything in that video has been timestamped, and some of the games here are 3D Hopper, 3D Paddleball, Face Ace, Target Shooting, and even more. And continuing to talk about game preservation, next up we're talking about the Sega Dreamcast and Half-Life. Yes, Half-Life was being ported to the Sega Dreamcast. No, it did not officially release. It was canceled a few weeks away from delivery. Anyways, here, Mephidimus Blackimus has a brand new video called Half-Life Blue Shift, September 2000 Prototype Comparison. Now, I don't know about you, but I find this stuff super interesting, and I do recommend checking out this video as it showcases the differences in this prototype build. I mean, look at the character head differences in this prototype versus the near final build. And this one doesn't have the final chapter available either, but I mean, at the same time here, I find this stuff super cool and what could have been. And on a side note here, it's probably worth checking out the description of this video for even more detailed information of where they got the sources. And continuing to talk about Half-Life, next up we're talking about Half-Life 3. I mean, what would a new year be without a new Half-Life rumor? Anyways, there's a new Half-Life 3 rumor because Mike Shapiro, the voice of G-Man, just tweeted this out. Valve Half-Life G-Man 2025. It is super cryptic, but it's got a lot of people talking. So in that video audio clip, he says unexpected surprises and also see you in 2025. Let me know your thoughts about this one. Do you think Half-Life 3 will materialize in 2025, or is it going to be another year filled with speculation and rumor? Next up, we're talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, and this is a leak of sorts. It's a little bit different than some of the console images we've seen previously. So Laura says, another new Nintendo patent published yesterday seems to yet again verify claims that the Switch 2 will use DLSS-style AI upscaling to improve output resolution for games rather than trying to natively run them at higher internal resolutions. And she goes on to say, all examples given in the patent talk about speeds and accuracy of either 540p to 1080p or 1080p to 4K upscales. So it doesn't seem like the Switch will support 4K natively, but it may upscale 1080p to 4K here. Now, there may be many reasons as to why the Switch 2 may not be able to support native 4K, and I mean, CPU and GPU processing power might be one of the big ones. But anyways, here it seems that cartridge sizes is another reason. So it appears that 4K textures may need a 60 gigabyte download, but 1080p native version may only need 20 gig, and then they'd upscale that to 4K. The Switch cartridges can support 32 gigs overall. Now, I don't know about you, but I can understand why Nintendo would go this route. I mean, trying to support 4K with a 60 gig download would be nuts on a handheld. Add a 20 gig or 32 gig cartridge, and then just upscaling to 4K makes more sense, especially on such a small screen. Or even when it's docked on a TV, I can still see it upscale from 1080p to 4K and be absolutely fine. But let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below. Are you upset about this, or are you absolutely fine with it? Next up, we're talking about the N64 homebrew scene. And if you're a fan of homebrew games, if you're a fan of the N64 Brew Game Jam, which we had talked about a little while back, you may be a fan of this news. All of the games have been put together on one ROM. Now, all of this is free, and there are 21 games on the ROM. And they say here the singular ROM that has been made available online contains all of those games, has a title screen, options to increase or decrease game difficulty, an option to blacklist games you don't want to play, and allows you to set it up for 4 players to compete in. The ROM is compatible with all flash cards. However, for emulation, they say this will not work with Mupen 64 or Project 64, as it does not support the ROM because of the SDK in use. However, they do recommend using Ares, which is also 100% free, and it will work with this. The overall theme for the Game Jam was competitive minigames, and if you've got some friends and you wanted to have some fun on some weird games for the N64, then this may be up your alley. I mean, there's even a weird winter sauna game. And speaking about free, next up we're talking about Pretendo, which is a free and open source alternative or replacement for Nintendo Wii U and 3DS servers. And Pretendo has started out the new year with one very big announcement. They're announcing that Monster Hunter 4GU is now available to the public, featuring experimental crossplay between Japanese and international versions. So in my opinion here, this is pretty big. I mean, they've managed to remove the region blocking from this game, and they say it is almost feature complete. The only thing missing right now is the ability to blacklist people. Let me know your thoughts about this one. Are you excited about Monster Hunter 4GU on Pretendo? And speaking about stuff in the new year, next up we're talking about the Hidden Palace and game preservation. And this is a tweet from the Hidden Palace. Happy NES year. Today we bring you a collection of close to 100 new prototype builds, including NES, SNES, Game Boy, and some Sega Genesis goodies. This is all thanks to Armageddon Potato, and there's a lot of very interesting stuff in here. I mean, there's Earthworm Jim 2, an August 9th, 1995 prototype for the Sega Mega Drive. There is a Napoleon Dynamite prototype, not joking with you, Napoleon Dynamite the game from September 7th, 2007 for the PSP. Overall, this is a pretty cool list with a lot of different games on it, and I would say this is a big win for game preservation. If you wanted to learn more about any of these individual games, you can check out the Hidden Palace website and, well, learn more about them. And speaking about free stuff, next up we're quickly talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance. Now, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is set to release in February of this year being 2025. Anyways, if you've never played the original, you can pick it up 100% free right now on the Epic Game Store. Kingdom Come Deliverance is free. This game is a story-driven open-world RPG. It was released back in 2018, and I would say free is the best price. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.